A little flexibility can go a long way. By refinancing your newer used auto loan with PenFed, you can lower your monthly payments for more flexibility in your budget. You can even schedule your first payment for up to 60 days from the date of your refinance. Calculate how much you can save at penfed.org/auto-refi or call 1-800-247-5626 to apply. Membership is open to everyone. To receive any advertised product, you must become a member of PenFed, insured by NCUA.
Right from his childhood, he had a sense of purpose. Titles and designations never attracted him. He knew his purpose was to touch lives and bringing out the best in the people. Today, I have this person who comes from a small town of Southeast India and has carved his niche and is a big man in the learning and development world. He's currently the global head talent and transformation at Wipro. He is Prakash Mohapatra. Let's hear more from him.
Let's just start with, take us a little back, tell us about your first job as a franchisee manager at Computer Garage to, now being the global head of learning and talent transformation.
Well, Priyadarshini, this has been an interesting journey. Actually, I did a job in Bhubaneswar for about a couple of years before taking up the franchisee manager role. I was then the center manager of the CGIST training center in Bhubaneswar. Then I moved to Bangalore and then took up this role as a franchisee manager for CGIST. So that was a big transition for me, moving from a small town to a big city, a small town boy transitioning to a man, arriving in a much bigger, larger city, and then encountering completely different set of challenges. So that was my first foray into the corporate world, and got exposure into the industry, got to work with industry experts, leaders, and partners, and so on. Then the role in HP was definitely a good role, and that was yet another transition from an organization like Computer Garage. Moving to Hewlett-Packard was definitely a big transition. Transition was in terms of getting exposure to best-in-class practices, methods, tools, getting an opportunity to work for a global organization like HP was a different exposure altogether. The journey continued while I moved to Wipro in a global role. That was yet another transition. Mm-hmm. A role which was very highly strategic, which gave me an opportunity to lead a large global function across the globe, across multiple countries. And then this also meant that I had an opportunity to work with people from different cultures. I had to understand the nuances of different cultures. I was involved in setting up the function in different countries. So the exposure was very different. And it also gave me an opportunity to create impact, create value for the organization and for the fraternity, for the industry at large. This role today, the global head talent transformation role, as I said, is a strategic role, very strategically positioned to create impact for the organization, for people, for customers. And this also is the role of a thought leader, where you not only play a strategic role, but you also create assets. You create value for the organization, and you also bring in your expertise and wisdom to the role, to the organization, and to the industry at large. So a phenomenal journey. I know it's a long journey, then talking about it in a couple of minutes is a big task. But I think this is a phenomenal journey filled with challenges, huge amount of learnings, great opportunity to interact with great leaders, experts, mentors, and a journey which started from nowhere to a role which is fulfilling, meaning, and highly impactful at the same time.
So how did learning and development happen in your life? How did learning bug bit you?
So, Priyadarshini, my initial years were into business development, channel partner management, franchisee management, running operations, etc. But fortunately, I was doing that for a training organization.
Okay.
So that's where it began. So while I was largely responsible for running operations, managing channel partner network, driving business, etc., I was doing that for a training company. So I understood the nuances of the training business, and that really attracted me. So I think right from my childhood, I had a strong sense of purpose all the time. So positions, titles, etc., never attracted me. But the questions like who I am, what I am here for, what is my purpose. I think this always really ignited my passion, my energy. And I think once I realized that my passion, my purpose is to touch lives, ignite minds, make a difference to people. And that's when I realized learning and development is the role that I should look at. That gives you a tremendous opportunity to make a difference to people, bring out the best in people. So it was a very natural inclination towards learning and development. So when the first opportunity came, I grabbed it and I never looked back.
I was about to ask you, was it very natural, or there were instances, which led you to realize that this is your calling, or this is what will give you a fulfillment?
I think it's very difficult to recall the exact moment, where the spark happened.
I know it will be difficult because you have to go back, but if you can, take a little while and think and let us know, because I think that'll help a lot of listeners to maybe reflect back or join the dots somewhere. And because this is a challenge these days, because there's so many opportunities around, and because we are exposed to everything, we sometimes just get it becomes very difficult to select what do we want to do.
Absolutely. So one has to find one's calling. That's important. Sometimes you are lucky, you find it instantly. Sometimes you find it the hard way. I think when I started my career, I don't think learning and development as a formal role existed at that. So learning and development, or training as it was called in the past, was part of a larger HR function. In many organizations, the HR leaders double-hatted as HR and training leaders in the organization. So I think if I try and recall, I had a natural inclination towards being with people, talking to people. I was into public speaking right from my school days. So talking to people, making an impact through your conversation, through your speeches, your dialogues, was a revelation to me that it was a natural strength. And probably at some point in time, I realized that strength can become my passion. It can become my profession as well. So I was doing that. I think in my business development role, I was using my ability to influence to whatever extent I could. In my operations and channel partner management role, I was to do the same thing. So I think when the first opportunity came my way, which helped me discover that there is a role, which is a full-time role, where you can take up this role, you can create and deliver training, you can manage training. I took that opportunity and then started enjoying it and went dive deeper into it to understand the nuances of the role, invested a lot of time, effort in honing my skills in this area. So I think when I started in this role, I was a novice. I had an affinity towards talking to people, a passion to make a difference, make an impact. But that was not enough to sustain a career over 2 decades in that particular domain. So definitely, I did invest a lot of time and effort. I learned a lot. I did a lot of research in this space to develop my skills in this space. And I think that's how the journey has been.
I'm sure. And it is a continuous process of learning. Surya, tell us a little bit about how learning and development or training has changed over a period of time, from a decade back in 2010 to 20, or maybe 2000 to 2010.
I think it has changed tremendously. There has been a has been tremendous transformation in this space. So I think when learning and development started, it was part of the HR function. It was not a dedicated function, and it was largely driven by trainers, instructors, facilitators. Learning and development was then called, and there is a reason why now it is called learning. So it was called training because it was trainer centric. It was driven by the trainers, driven by the learning. It revolved around what the trainer imparted, what the trainer wanted the learners to learn, so on. So it was curriculum driven. It was very formal and structured, and the trainer was at the center of learning. I think decade later, probably in 2010, a lot of transition had happened by then. So training was slowly becoming learner centric. And then digitization, automation of learning, e-learning, online learning, all these were gaining momentum. They had come into play in a very big way. While the debate was still on, whether e-learning is better or formal classroom training is better, but I think it was e-learning, online learning, digitization in learning was making its presence felt. So that was a significant transition that happened in that decade. And when we talk about the next decade, I think it was the change was transformation. I think today, when we talk about 2020, learning is absolutely learner-centered. It's a learner who decides the path. The trainer is a mere facilitator. Of course, trainer's role is very, very critical and important, but the whole learning process is now learners. Digitization has gone to a different level. Today, we're not talking about e-learning and online learning. We're talking about how augmented reality and virtual reality can change learning and development. We're talking about what role artificial intelligence can play in the learning space. We're talking about learning analytics. Today is the age of hyper personalization. So it's like make your own pasta. In the good old days, you used to take what the restaurant guy used to serve you, what the chef used to serve you, or the waiter used to come and serve you. But today you have choices. As a learner, you don't have to take what the restaurant, what the chef is giving you. It's not entirely driven by the chef or by the menu. But you have the choice to make your own pasta. You have the choice to choose your pasta, choose your sauce, choose your spices. You can cook it yourself. So that's the level of hyper personalization that is in learning today. So a learner can decide the learning path. He or she can choose from a bouquet of courses, can make. He or she can really integrate different courses, basis the career aspiration he or she has, interest and passion that he or she has. One can really make the learning path, which is absolutely customized and personalized. So that's the transition that has taken place.
I think you give a very good example of, customizing your own thing that you want to. The pasta example is very beautiful. Truly, I mean, we have so many options, and you don't really have to pick up something go by different example. Rather, can pick something what you want and customize it.
Absolutely,
beautiful.
Absolutely. Yeah. And those days were very different. In those days, our life was very linear. People used to complete their education, start a professional career, a job, complete their job, and get into retirement life.
Right.
But today it's not linear. Today you can start your education, stop, do a job, stop after a few years, go back to education, stop, then go on a vacation, come back and start working again. So it's not as linear as it used to be in the past. So that's how the choices, the preferences, the likes and dislikes have evolved. And learning and development functions are really trying to adapt to this transition.
Talking about this, just a question pops up in my mind. Do you think having a set pattern to follow, like, how people used to follow earlier is advisable, or, just going with the flow, taking it what your heart feels like is more advisable? I mean, I know it's going to be your take, but what do you think? Because you have years of experience now. So if you have to give an advice or suggestion to people who are struggling with a career, or people who have to choose, who are just young graduates, what do you think? Should they be finishing their education, then picking up, or they should just go by their intuition of getting into something which interests them?
There is no right or wrong answer. But what I would like to say here is life used to be a little more predictable than it is today. So it was more predictable, and then options and choices were limited. So when the choices are limited, then you have limited options to work on.
Right.
So in the past, career options were very limited. So therefore, students or learners had very limited number of options, and that's how learning was more formed, because it revolved around a few options. But today there are a few things that happen. One is, today the future is unknown, cannot be predicted. So it's very difficult to predict what skills will be relevant. Will the skills which are relevant today, will they remain relevant tomorrow? We don't know.
Right.
The knowledge that we all use at the workplace did not exist in the past. The knowledge that we shall use tomorrow does not even exist today. And that's going to evolve over the next few years. So the environment is disruptive, dynamic. The future is unknown and ambiguous. And there is too much of complexity all around. And today we see a new generation of learners. They're millennials, Gen Y and Gen Z.
Yeah.
Their approach to life, their outlook towards life is very different from the previous generations. And they want to be in control, and then they want to be involved in decision making. They have their own preferences and styles, likes and dislikes. So in an environment like this, where things are changing all the time at a very fast pace, and when people have plenty of options in their hands in terms of roles, in terms of career choices, in terms of what they want to do with their life, there are just far too many options. I think the best is to have personalized learning, because that gives you the option, the choice, the control, and the power, and the flexibility to change whenever you see change in your career, in life, in the environment around you. I think that's the context of today, which demands that personalized learning should be encouraged. And I believe that that's the order of the day, today and tomorrow.
So you talked about upskilling. You talked about learning things. Do you think unlearning is equally important? While we learn and relearn.
Absolutely, because what we learned yesterday, all of that is not relevant today. Business models are evolving. I think a very famous personality once said, the techniques that we used to solve yesterday's problems are not relevant today. We cannot use the same techniques to solve today's problems. So if we stick to yesterday's techniques, yesterday's models, ways of doing things, we may become grossly unsuccessful. So that's where unlearning plays an important role. So unlearning is about challenging what we know, is about challenging your beliefs. In some cases, maybe challenging your values and challenging all the paradigms that we have. So it's absolutely important, but it is extremely difficult.
Okay, so now let's just go back again. I don't know. I just feel like asking you more questions in terms of your overall career. Tell me, over this years, you must have had a lot of challenges, setting up new processes, dealing with different kind of people, leaders, a lot of things. What has been your biggest challenge?
This career spanning across more than 20 years would have plenty of challenges. It's absolutely difficult to pinpoint one challenge as the biggest challenge. But if I try and recall, I think a few which were really, really difficult to challenge. I think the first instance was what I talked about, coming from a small town like Bhubaneswar, working for a small organization, moving to a city like Bangalore, and then working for a large organization with a pan-India presence, taking on a national role. I think that transition itself was a challenge. Other challenge for me, I think what I have experienced the early part of my career. So I don't have an MBA, but I am in a senior management role. So I think that mental barrier, maybe sometimes within me, sometimes people around me, my recruiting managers, hiring managers, initial days of my career, leaders refusing to give me a role because give me a role in a leadership position. Because I do not have a formal management degree, etc. I think that has been a challenge. But today, I think I have management graduates from the IIMs and from the prestigious B schools do work with me as part of my team. So obviously, life has moved on. And the third challenge, the biggest, probably one of the biggest, would be the present pandemic situation. What all of us are grappling with. So I would not be doing justice if I do not really call it out as one of the biggest challenges. So personally, professionally, I think most of us are really trying to come to grips with this challenge. For me personally, since I manage the L&D function for a large organization, a global team, I am really seeing that some of my colleagues are really struggling. So my challenge is to really stand up and support them. And it's not easy. I want to do that with the best of my ability and sincere. Our customers need help. Partners need help. These are really challenging times where of course, you need to manage your own personal challenges. And at the same time, as a leader, stand up and help people who look up to you. So I can think of some of these challenges as I try and recall, and then kind of take a quick glance through my 20 plus years career to really find out which are the big ones.
So let's just not go very back. If you can talk a little bit about the top 3 challenges that you had when you, as an organization decided to start working remotely because of the pandemic, and how things are better now with 6 to 8 months down the lane, and what has been your learning through this?
So if the question is about the pandemic challenge because of the pandemic, I think it has been difficult, but at the same time, it has been an enriching experience also. There have been huge amount of learnings that have come our way. So what I'm trying to do at the moment is to support my team, because my team has to support the large. So I'm trying to engage with them. I'm trying to communicate with them as much as I can. I believe there is no communication which is overload of communication in these circumstances. I'm trying to empower them so that they feel in control. They have more flexibility and they're driven by objectives. And in the team, those who are really struggling, those who have got very difficult work-life balances, whose personal life has been impacted, my paramount focus has been to support them on prior, whether it is mental wellness, whether it is talking to them, coaching them, counseling, whether trying to remove some of the roadblocks for them. That has been a very so this is what I'm trying to do at present, and we are seeing good results coming out of it. While we are doing all of this, trying to support the people, I think another important thing I'm doing right now to deal with this challenge effectively is to reimagine the whole thing. Reimagine my role as a head of the function, reimagine the role of the function itself, and look at the current situation, relook at our deployment strategy, our delivery strategy, our engagement strategy. Because we are moving towards a new world, and the old ways of doing things are not going to work always. And it's important that we need to reimagine the role, reimagine the stakeholders, reimagine delivery strategy. That's something I'm working on in parallel.
You have been, mentoring people, coaching people, making sure your team is being taken care of well, professionally, and also the mental health and stuff. How do you take care? I mean, where do you drive all these inspiration from, or how do you take care of your mental health? Is that a good question?
No, that's actually a great question. And so where do I get my inspiration from? So I think my inspiration comes to me from my spiritual practice. I would not call myself a strong spiritual person, but I would say that I'm in that journey. And I think a lot of inspiration comes to me from the philosophy and ideology of my spiritual guide, through his teachings. I have found balance in my life, because these times are all about finding balance between tough, challenging times and then possibilities, finding balance between personal life and professional, finding balance between livelihood and then life, and so on. I think that's the secret sauce to success in these times, and that I have found that balance through my spiritual guide and through my spiritual practices.
Tell us a little bit more, Surya. What is your daily routine or ritual like, which keeps you up for the entire day and take up all the challenges that coming up?
My daily routine, I start my day with meditation. Meditation is an attempt to connect the soul with the supreme soul and draw inspiration and energy. And when we talk about the supreme soul, the very thought itself drives a lot of energy, because you know that you are one with the universal soul. If you're one with the universal soul, you have energy in abundance, strength and power in abundance. Meditation helps me to establish that connect, gets me ready for the day, for the week, gets me ready for the challenges ahead. So that's one thing that I do every day to begin my day. I usually end my day with reflection. What I did well, what I did not do well, what I should or I would do differently if I face this situation again. So that's a reflection that I do every day before I wind up, before I retire to bed.
So here's this little question, because I know I've been trying to do a lot of things, but I just don't, and I just don't do it consistently. I just give up in between. So is there a secret to that? I'm sure everyone struggles, but then, you overcome that and you get into a habit of it. So do you think you have anything to add from your own experience? How did you get into a good habit consistently without even failing for once?
I think it's all in the mind. So all of us need to regulate our mind. If we do it in the mind, then we will be able to do it in the real world. So many people know that it's injurious. Smoking is injurious to health,
Right.
but they actually can't give up smoking. But I think it begins in the mind. And I believe the secret sauce or the secret to that would be love. So if you have a spiritual guide in your life, and if you love your living master or life teacher or guide, you would do things that he would like you to do. So because he is the supreme well-wisher. So a small example is parents do anything for the children because they love their children. And if one truly loves his father or mother, and he would not do things his parents would not like even in their absence. But if that individual has genuine love, I personally believe, I think transition or change begins with love. If you have that love, I think it's easy. If you don't have it, then we'll have thousands arguments to defeat or to prove that why I'm not doing something or I'm not able to do something. I don't know. I might sound a little old school.
No,
but I think, this has worked with me.
That is really, so thoughtful. If you just think about it, yeah, love can make you change things. That's true. That is so deep.
And love has stood the test of time. It was relevant yesterday. It is relevant today. It will remain relevant tomorrow. This is the biggest wealth of life.
So true. But we seldom, think about it, isn't it? It's always, why should we do it? We start questioning on multiple things. Then, love is the underlying factor.
Very true.
Okay, so I think one of the last question. What kind of books do you read? Maybe among all your books that you have read that have changed your life or has guided through, or your best.
I actually read a lot of leadership books, spiritual books, of course, management books, and I read books on different industry practices and approaches, etc. The first book I would recommend is Satyanusaran, written by my spiritual guide, Sri Thakuranukul Chandra. You would find many books if you go and search in the internet. You may not find a lot about this book, but this is one book which teaches us the essence of life. Okay. And I would definitely very strongly recommend, if you find an opportunity, read this book. The book is Satyanusaran, which means the pursuit of the truth. Another book which I liked very much, which is Jim Collins' Good to Great. I loved that book, found that book very useful. It talks about leadership, and I enjoyed reading that book and found it useful. And Quiet Leadership is another book I think you should read, which talks about the essence of coaching and talks about what an important role coach can play in making a difference to the coachee. And it talks about some techniques which are really powerful. So these three books come to my mind, Priyadashini. Thank you so much, Surya. Before we wrap up, is there any message that you want to give to our listeners, in terms of, their career, profession, passion? Just maybe a one or two liner. I think one thing, if I have to share anything with early career professionals who are just beginning their career, my 2 cents for them would be, life is not a 100 meters race. It's a marathon. And so take it as a journey, enjoy your journey, experience what it comes the way as you take this journey on the long marathon. It's going to be a blissful, enjoyable, enriching experience.
Thank you so much, Surya. Thank you so much for giving us so much. I'm sure the listeners would take, some percent of it. And thank you so much.
Thank you, Priyadashini. Thank you for this conversation. Thank you for this opportunity. I really enjoyed having this conversation with you.
I had such a lovely time talking to Surya, knowing his journey, learning about the changes and learning approaches. And life isn't a 100-meter race, but a marathon, and just enjoy the journey. Thank you so much for listening to this episode. I hope you would also have some takeaway that you would like to share. You can find all the links at the show notes, and you can write to me at Priyadarshini Barik at any of my social media handles. Signing out. Happy listening. Thank you.
The Medicare annual election period deadline is almost here. I'm Meredith Vieira, here with examples of people who started their search for coverage at myhealthpolicy.com. Meet Larry. He likes doing things online, so he started
at myhealthpolicy.com. I took my time and found the coverage I was looking for. And done.
Next is Mary. When she wanted answers, she picked up the phone.
I wanted a local perspective on plans, so I called myhealthpolicy.com and done. Switched to a better plan.
And Michael.
I met with a local licensed insurance agent face-to-face and done.
Go to myhealthpolicy.com to compare top-rated Medicare Advantage plans in your area, including $0 premium plans, or call 1-800-GO-START. That's 1-800-GO-START. Meredith Vieira is a paid endorser. KF Agency operates myhealthpolicy.com, not connected with or endorsed by the U.S. government or the federal Medicare program. A licensed insurance agent may call.